You must initiate a total clinical severance from the social hallucination that loneliness is a pathology to be cured. In the architecture of the sovereign, loneliness is a strategic requirement. The normal human is a walking biohazard of mediocrity, carrying a social virus that infects every mind it touches with the symptoms of consensus, compromise, and cognitive entropy. Your square meter, your private laboratory, must be treated as a sovereign sterile zone, a high-security biological containment unit where the ambient noise of the herd is filtered out to allow for the absolute focus of the Titan. To the masses, being alone is a vacuum they desperately try to fill with the garbage data of Netflix, social media, and low-value conversations. To you, the vacuum is the only space where you can hear the internal frequency of your own ioxy-3 intent. If you allow a normal person into your sterile zone, you are allowing data corruption. Their fears, their financial bios of scarcity, and their petty dramas are like radioactive dust. They settle on your projects and degrade the quality of your output. We must analyze the neurochemistry of the hive mind. The human brain is evolutionarily wired for social mimicry. When you are surrounded by people who have zero expectation of themselves, your mirror neurons automatically begin to synchronize with their low-energy state. This is subconscious contagion. You can read all the books and watch all the scripts, but if you spend your physical hours in a room with commoners, your brain will eventually prioritize social belonging over structural domination. You will find yourself softening your edges, moderating your tone, and slowing your response velocity just to remain relatable. This is the relatability trap. A Titan is not relatable. A Titan is a category of one. Isolation is the only chemical environment that allows your brain to shift from social survival mode, high cortisol, low focus, into creation mode, high dopamine, high flow. By removing the presence of others, you are effectively overclocking your prefrontal cortex. You are giving yourself the biological permission to think illegal thoughts, ideas that would be immediately strangled by the social policing of a group. Your laboratory must be governed by the protocol of absolute silence. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of external narrative. Every time you check a text, every time you hear a roommate's complaint, every time you grab a coffee with a friend, you are suffering a context-switching penalty. It takes the human brain approximately 23 minutes to reach a state of deep flow after a distraction. If you are socializing even once an hour, you are never, not for one single second of your life, operating at your peak cognitive capacity. You are living in the shallows. The sterile zone is a time dilation chamber. Inside the square meter of your isolation, 1 hour of work is worth 10 hours of the normal person's distracted labor. You are not just working, you are folding time. You are achieving in a month what the herd achieves in a decade. This is why they fear your loneliness. It is not because they pity you, but because they intuitively sense that your isolation is the source of your asymmetric advantage. They want to include you because they want to neutralize you. You must view your isolation as a psychological decompression chamber. The world out there is a high-pressure environment of social contracts and implicit expectations. You are expected to be a son, a friend, a citizen, a consumer. These roles are exoskeletons that restrict your movement. When you step into your sterile zone and lock the door, you shed these roles. You become nothing, which is the prerequisite for becoming anything. This is where the primal modern king is forged. In the sterile zone, there is no audience to perform for. You are forced to confront the raw reality of your own competence or lack thereof. There is no social validation to buffer the pain of a failed script or a slow response. This pain of the vacuum is the fuel of the Titan. Most people run from this pain into the arms of others. You must embrace it, harness it, and use it to drive your YouTube production to levels of volume that shouldn't be humanly possible. Your loneliness is your laboratory of the self, where you are both the scientist and the subject, perfecting the formula of domination away from the prying, judging eyes of the mediocre. Finally, you must realize that the normal person's presence is a tax on your energy reserves. Every social interaction requires emotional labor, the act of managing someone else's perception of you. Even if you are not talking, the mere presence of another human in your space occupies a portion of your cognitive RAM. Your brain is constantly pinging their location and state. In the sterile zone, that RAM is reclaimed. Every byte of processing power is redirected toward your product promotion, your thumbnail design, and your philosophical war. You are a closed system with 100% efficiency. You do not leak energy through small talk or social niceties. You are a cold, efficient machine of production. The square meter is your throne of solitude. It is where the ancestor zero is born. To enter the world of the top top 0.1%, you must first leave the world of the 99.9%. You must become a ghost to the herd so that you can become a god to the future. You must understand that the sterile zone is not merely a place of physical refuge, but a high-pressure alchemy chamber where the raw, agonizing pain of isolation is pressurized and distilled into the liquid gold of high-output creation. Most men fear the vacuum because in the absence of social noise, the silence becomes a mirror that reflects their own inadequacies. They cannot stand the sound of their own heartbeat, so they flee to the noise of the crowd. But you, the architect, utilize the vacuum as a cognitive forge. When you eliminate the presence of the normal, you create a massive pressure differential between your internal ambition and your external reality. This pressure is the only force capable of triggering the transmutation of suffering. In the sterile zone, your loneliness is not a burden. It is the high-octane fuel that powers your 54 video per day production cycles. You are converting the social vacuum into a mechanical drive. You are taking the pain of being unseen and forging it into the power of being unstoppable. The first stage of this alchemy is the purge of external validation. In the social world, you are addicted to the micro hits of dopamine that come from a nod, a smile, or a good job. This addiction makes you a slave to the audience. In the sterile zone, there is no one to nod. There is no one to smile. You are alone with your metrics, your scripts, and your results. This is the withdrawal phase. Your brain will scream for the comfort of another human voice. It will try to trick you into just checking a comment or calling a friend for inspiration. You must recognize these as structural leakages. Every time you seek validation from the outside, you are lowering the pressure in your alchemy chamber. You are leaking the energy you need to build your empire. The Titan finds validation only in the completion of the mandate. His dopamine comes from the upload successful notification, not from the like count. He has replaced social feedback with systems feedback. We must then analyze the physics of focused obsession. In the sterile zone, your mind is allowed to become monolithic. A normal person's attention is a gaseous state. It expands to fill whatever room they are in, thin and weak. Your attention must be a solid state, a laser-focused beam of intent that burns through technical obstacles and creative blocks. This level of focus is biologically impossible in a shared space. Even the passive presence of another human creates a relational gravity that pulls at your thoughts. You are unconsciously wondering what they think of your work, if you are being too loud, or if you should interact with them. In the sterile zone, that gravity is zero. You are in deep space. You can scream your scripts at the wall. You can pace like a caged animal. You can work for 18 hours straight without eating because there is no normal observer to shame you into balance. Balance is the enemy of greatness. The sterile zone is a sanctuary for the obsessive freak, the only version of you that is capable of dominating the market. This leads to the synthesis of the shadow. Every human has a shadow, the primal, aggressive, and ioxy-3 part of their psyche that the normal world demands they suppress. To be social is to be neutered. You must hide your hunger, your rage, and your desire for dominance to keep the herd comfortable. But in the sterile zone, the shadow is the lead scientist. You invite the darkness into your laboratory. You use your aggression to fuel your product promotion. You use your cold desolation to craft atmospheric visuals that haunt the viewer. You are not acting like a king. You are accessing the primal king within. The sterile zone is the only place where it is safe to be dangerous. By allowing your shadow to run the production line, you produce content that has a visceral weight that the polite, balanced world can never replicate. You are selling raw truth, and you can only harvest that truth in the dark, sterile silence of your own isolation. You must also master the logistics of the hermit king. Your sterile zone must be optimized for zero-friction existence. Every object in your laboratory must have a tactical purpose. If it does not contribute to the YouTube war, it is clutter and must be purged. You treat your physical environment like a cockpit. Everything you need for production, the camera, the mic, the high-speed connection, the caffeine, must be within arm's reach or accessible with zero cognitive load. You are minimizing the distance between thought and execution. In the normal world, there are thousands of micro-frictions. Finding your keys, talking to the neighbor, deciding what to eat. In the sterile zone, these decisions are automated or eliminated. You wear the same clothes, you eat the same fuel, you follow the same rust-themed ritual. You are conserving every drop of mental RAM for the creation of your assets. You are a closed-loop system that converts coffee and silence into digital sovereignty. Finally, recognize the temporal asymmetry of loneliness. The herd lives in linear time, a slow, agonizing crawl from one weekend to the next. In the sterile zone, you live in non-linear time because you are not tethered to social cycles, dinners, holidays, quality time. You can enter the long now. You can work for 72 hours and then sleep for 12. You are operating on the internal clock of the mission, not the social clock of the state. This allows you to outproduce your competitors by a a factor of 100 times. While they are relaxing because it is Saturday, you are attacking because the pressure in the chamber is at its peak. This is the alchemy of the unfair advantage. You are trading the cheap pleasure of company for the expensive power of achievement. The world will call you crazy, antisocial, or lonely. You will look at your bank account and your growing library of hundreds of atmospheric assets, and you will realize that lonely is just the word the losers use for winning in private. The final stage of the isolation protocol is the metabolic transformation of your solitude into a sovereign monument, a digital and physical reality so dense with intent that it begins to exert its own gravitational pull on the world. You do not emerge from the sterile zone to rejoin society, you emerge to colonize it. Most men treat their workspace as a temporary prison they hope to escape. You have treated your square meter as the high command bunker of a global empire. By the time the door of the laboratory opens, the transition is already complete. You are no longer a person seeking a place in the market. You are a market event. Your period of cold desolation has stripped away the human fluff, the need for small talk, the fear of judgment, and the reliance on social cues. You have become a biological weapon of absolute certainty. The world senses the sterility of your focus, and it reacts with a mixture of fear and devotion. This is the radiative power of the void. The first law of the sovereign monument is the inversion of influence. In the normal world, the individual is a consumer of influence. You watch, you listen, you react. In the sterile zone, you have spent thousands of hours in zero input mode, which has forced your brain to become a pure producer. You have generated hundreds of atmospheric assets, written dozens of philosophical scripts, and designed the Rust-themed visual language of your future. You are now a source node. When you finally release your content into the digital ether, it carries the force of the vacuum. It feels alien, cold, and oxy-3 because it was created in an environment free from the contamination of trends. You are not following the algorithm. You are bending the algorithm to your frequency. People are drawn to your work because it possesses a density that can only be achieved through prolonged isolation. You are a star that has collapsed into a black hole of authority, and the normal world has no choice but to be sucked into your orbit. We must analyze the logistics of the external ghost. Even as you scale your empire and your YouTube production dominates the feeds, you must maintain the sterile barrier. The sovereign architect does not become accessible as he becomes successful. He becomes more remote. You utilize the buffer of the machine to manage your interactions. Your automated sovereign layer from the zero expectation protocol handles the normal queries while you remain in the inner sanctum of your laboratory. You are a ghost in your own organization. This asymmetric presence is what creates mystique in the 21st century. Availability is cheapness. If anyone can DM you, you are a commodity. If you are a voice from the void, a source of high value, high velocity output that remains physically unreachable, you become a myth. You are the primal modern king who rules through the glass of the screen, never allowing the mediocre breath of the public to fog the mirror of your focus. The second law is the sanctification of the square meter. Your laboratory is not just where you work, it is the ground zero of your sovereignty. As you grow, you do not expand into a shared office or a collaborative space. Those are the ghettos of collective thought. You expand the sterile perimeter. You build a fortress that replicates the conditions of your first square meter on a larger scale. This is the dynastic citadel. Every person you eventually hire must be a sovereign unit who understands the protocol of silence. Your organization does not have meetings, it has data exchanges. It does not have culture, it has operating procedures. You are building a machine of kings. You are ensuring that the ancestors' virus of poverty and compromise never crosses the threshold of your domain. You have created a microstate with a population of one, which dictates terms to the macrostates of millions. This leads to the final transcendence of the social need. The ultimate result of the sterile zone is that you have killed the need for the other. You have discovered that you are a complete ecosystem. This is the most dangerous realization a man can have because it makes him uncontrollable. The state, the family, and the church all rely on your social need to keep you in line. They use the threat of ostracism to force compliance. But you cannot ostracize a man who has already chosen the void. You cannot shame a man who finds his only validation in the metrics of the mission. You have achieved psychological autarky. You are the gray man who can walk through a crowd and feel nothing, yet return to his laboratory and create a world. Your loneliness was the price of admission to this level of power. You have paid the price in full, and the receipt is written in the capital you have accumulated and the liberty you have secured. Finally, understand the legacy of the laboratory. Long after you are gone, the assets you created in your isolation will continue to broadcast your frequency. Your videos, your promotions, and your philosophical code are the monuments you have built. They are the proof of life of a titan. The normal people who spent their lives socializing will leave nothing but a fading memory in the minds of other normal people. You will leave a structural impact on the digital fabric. You did not participate in life. You architected it from the sterile zone. You took a single square meter of the earth and turned it into a black box of sovereignty that changed the trajectory of your bloodline. You are the ancestor zero who went into the dark so that your descendants could live in the light of an empire. The lab is no longer a room, it is a legend.